David in Oregon wants to talk about the Bible. The resurrection stories could have been separate experiences and not one mass hallucination, which I don't know that we've suggested any of that. But David, welcome to the show. How can we help?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, I think she, when she took it down, she might have misunderstood me a bit. Well, I've been reading Flim Flam by James Randi, and he was talking about an incident where he had hoaxed a UFO sighting, and all these people called in and started saying that they seen a similar thing. Well, I'd happened to be watching a debate with you and Michael Licona, and Licona kept arguing that the best explanation wouldn't be mass hallucinations because they all saw the same thing. But when you actually look at the stories in the Bible, when it talks about when people seen them, I think there's like 3 separate ones. They're all different stories. In fact, like half the time it's saying that they didn't even recognize who Jesus was. And I don't know if I'm way off base when I'm reading this or what. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
It's a interesting story if you don't like well-told stories. I mean, that's all it is until someone proves otherwise. People don't rise from the dead. So there's a big burden of proof you've got to meet before we can even talk about the story as if it's being real. So, they haven't met that burden of proof quite yet.
Yeah, I think you've just made a great case that I wish I would have made during the discussion with Licona. It's something I've known about, and I even talked earlier today about extraordinary popular delusions and the madness of crowds, and how people go along with the group, and also how people want to be on the insiders. So I remember one time when I was a kid, we were outside and we thought we had taken some hallucinogenic drug. Turned out we hadn't taken anything of the kind, but the 3 of us all laid out on a trampoline, staring at the sky, imagining that the sky was moving and talking about it and all claiming we could see it. And afterwards, it was very clear to me, after I actually took a hallucinogenic drug years later, it was like, whatever the hell was happening to us on the trampoline wasn't a hallucinogenic drug. It was us playing along. And we see this with regard to speaking in tongues and, being slain in the spirit and all these things. And the James Randi example of, I saw a UFO. And then there's people who are going to be calling in to say, yes, I saw that too. I think that what we know about human beings suggests that that is at least one of many plausible explanations for why there are similar stories. But the thing that strikes me is, look at the synoptic gospels. These are the first 3, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And they're telling the story of this. It seems clear that some of them are referencing others, like Matthew and Luke seem to be referencing Mark. I don't know why anybody would need to do that if they were also witnesses. There's no reason to think any of these things are witnesses, but also they were written in different time periods. It's not like Jim and I were all out playing Frisbee golf and we saw a UFO and we all reported on it the next day. Instead, it is years, if not decades later, where I'm telling a story and Jim is saying, I was there. I saw that too. Well, it may be true, or it may just be flawed memory. I don't remember events. If somebody that I was in the Navy with called into the show and said, hey man, I served with you on the Roosevelt. Do you remember when this happened? My default response for most of them is going to be no, because even if it seems vaguely familiar, I know that as a human being, I am susceptible to saying, oh yeah, I remember something like that. I remember like that. And it may not be that. It may not be that I remember. So I think you made a good point.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I consider myself a theist. I've read Lacona's books. I've read Habermas's books. I've actually emailed Habermas a few times. But in that debate, some of the concessions that Lacona made was, kind of surprising because he doesn't really come across like that in the book. I remember one of the exchanges where you ask him, why should we not assume that we have a natural explanation? He says, well, because sometimes we have a better, or we don't have a good natural explanation. And you ask them about, you doing mentalism? And he essentially concedes that, well, yeah, we have reasons to believe that. But then he harps on about Ouija boards and sidekicks, all things I don't believe in. And I think, you know, we have really good reasons not to. Yeah, it was kind of bizarre. I was surprised by the whole exchange.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have anything else to add on that. I appreciate the call, and you added something to think about. So yeah, it's nice to find theists who are also finding reasons why some other people's arguments are bad, like I end up doing with other atheists on occasion, and other atheists do with me on occasion as well.
Yeah, I think I'm on the way out, to be honest. I mean, at this point, I don't really believe any of it. I'm just kind of hanging on for, you know, believing to believe reasons. So, all right. Thanks,
well, that's the thing to lead with then, David. The next time you get through the call screeners, say, hey, I think I'm almost an atheist. Maybe there's one thing hanging on. We'd love to talk to you again another time, but we're running short of time today with the calls coming in. So thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye. You too. You too.
Yeah, I don't ever like to make that assumption saying, oh, that person's on their way out. I've made that mistake early on in the atheist experience. Like, you watch, in a few months or in a year, we'll hear back from that person. They'll be an atheist. And while that did happen, you know, with Enoch and possibly with other calls, but it's, you know, you can't say that. Like, I've met some genuinely brilliant theists. I mean, it's just smart, well, knowledgeable, well-educated on these things, and able to spot fallacies and able to recognize that they don't really have the best reasons, and something still keeps them in.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people arguing about the Bible remind me of geeks arguing about science fiction novels. I don't know if you remember the novel Ringworld.
Yeah.
Larry Niven. Larry Niven's Ringworld. And apparently the backlash that he got from his fans from pointing out that the Ringworld was unstable. And then the next book he created, according to the story, just to fix the physics errors he had made in the first book about the Ringworld being unstable, because geeks were arguing about whether or not a completely fictional Ringworld it could be done or not. And sometimes people arguing about the Bible remind me of geeks doing that. Not that it isn't fun and exciting to do that, but I mean, let's first prove it's real, and then we can talk about motivations and what really happened, and what we could expect from that.